This is Rough Drafts Welcome,
the podcast where you can mess up, and we can too.
I'm Sachiko.
And I'm Erin.
And together with the editors at Salt and Sage Books,
we're changing the face of storytelling, one rough draft at a time.
We're glad you're here. Let's get started.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Rough Drafts Welcome. I am excited to sit down today and chat with you about our topic. It's going to be fun. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. I'm excited talking about this.
Me too. Okay, you go for it because this is your idea.
Okay. So this is why I'm asking for this. What we're talking about today is a step-by-step guide to indie publishing, starting from figuring out a market that you're going to write to all the way to hitting publish. Mm-hmm. I am starting my process as an indie author. I am working on creating inventory. I'm writing my story. And something I'm running into, because I'm self-diagnosed autistic, is I'm noticing that a lot of my difficulty with task initiation is due to the fact that if I don't know every step in a process, I feel stuck in the process. I have a daughter who needed a lot of physical therapy and occupational therapy, and something really interesting I learned in that process is that things that we consider a single skill, like rolling over, sitting up, walking, it's actually a combination of like 10 to 20 smaller skills, specific muscles and processes and steps. So what I'm hoping to get out of this is a little more insight to all of the smaller events and skills and processes that go into creating an indie pubbed book.
I'm so excited because this is, for a while, this was my special interest that I really dove deep on. So I feel like I understand now how to do it. So I'm so excited to show you how to do it. And I'm going to share my screen. So if you're listening on whatever it's called, on a podcast, if you're just listening to this audio and if you're not like physically watching us on YouTube, you might find it worth switching over to YouTube for this one if you want the specific things. I'll still try to describe them in such a way that hopefully it'll be pretty easy to follow. But, we're going to do our best with what we have. So, okay. Let's say you have decided you want to write a story. And Sachiko, I'll just ask you questions throughout this as though you are. Because you are.
Yes.
All right. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do is decide if you want to publish on Amazon or not. And this is fine. You get to pick where you publish. You get to decide what you want to do. We're going to go through Amazon specifically. I think this is one of the more straightforward ways to do it. You can publish in a variety of places, but honestly, if you're not having your self-published stuff on Amazon, I feel like you're kind of missing the market. It is a very, this is where so much of the indie market lives right now is on Amazon. So you're going to go to Amazon, right? This is, as much as none of us particularly like the Zon, this is where the market exists. So this is what we're going to talk about. Okay, so step one, you need to understand what a Kindle is, right? You need to understand what Kindle ebooks are. And surely everybody listening knows how to do that. If you've read a book on your phone, you've used an ebook. So first thing that you're going to do is you're going to try to find a category. Now, there are easy ways to do this that are a little bit more expensive, and there are free ways to do this that are more time consuming.
Okay, so why are we finding a category?
Okay, so we're finding a category because first things first, we want our book to sell. And again, it depends on why you're publishing. I'm going to assume, why are you publishing? Is it for love? Is it for money? Is it a lovely combo of both? What are we doing here?
For me, the story I'm telling myself about the story that I'm trying to tell is that we are just practicing having fun with writing. Mm-hmm. And we're going to write in the genres that we love to read.
Yes.
Because, we want to retell the stories that we love hearing.
Mm-hmm. So how important does it feel to you that your book is read?
To be perfectly honest.
This is like a question, I know.
Right. To be perfectly honest, my first relief is going to be having written an entire series.
Okay.
But it would be really great to know that it's being read and to have the opportunity to make some money. That would be terrific too.
Okay. So then when we're looking for categories, Amazon will let you list your book, last time I checked, in 3 categories that you get to physically choose. And then their algorithm will just kind of auto sort you into other categories. You can email them and request that they put you into specific categories. And last time that I really dove deep on this is you could put your book into 10 separate categories, but you do have to email them and request those very specific categories that your book is put into. So depending on what format your book is in, you have, sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought. If you have a hardcover, it's going to be in 10 categories. If you have a paperback, it's going to be in 10 categories. If you have an audiobook, it's going to be in 10 categories. So they will all be listed as the same thing on your particular, on like your back end. They will all be listed as the same categories, but the Amazon algorithm, you may find that it puts your different formats. Thank you. It puts your different formats into different categories on its own. Don't be alarmed if that happens. It's okay. If you feel strongly that your book belongs in specific categories, you just email them and ask them to fix it. Okay, but categories are important because of the way that Amazon sells books. So you know over here that if you are looking for a queer book, you're going to click the LGBTQ plus ebooks. If you are writing a science and math book, you're going to find it here. If you're writing about sports and outdoors, you're going to click here. So just for the sake of this conversation, you did tell me that you are writing romance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to
romance.
So I've clicked over here onto romance. Okay. And so you will see that within romance, we have quite a variety of subcategories. Now, you will find some readers who will literally only read one subcategory, and they will like devour that subcategory.
Yeah.
So maybe they love their alpha males, maybe they love their enemies to lovers, maybe it's holiday romance for them that is just what makes them so happy. So if you can get into a category that is popular and that is not oversaturated, this is like the magical key, and I'll show you how to do it manually, of figuring out which category to put your book into. And now remember, your book has 3 things that you can choose. So I always recommend that you want to put your book into one broad category that fits what your thing is. So you said you are writing fantasy romance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I clicked on fantasy romance, and we're over here. Whoops, I'm trying to scroll on the wrong page. This is our fantasy romance section, right? So then we are in the subgenre, and what you're going to do is come over here to the left. And remember, the only point of doing this right now is we're just trying to say, where could I put my book? Where would it fit? Because then that is going to allow you to do market research about the tropes, about the plot, about the cover styles, about the way that people write their blurbs. And if you can successfully imitate something that is doing really well, you are going to have a higher chance of getting readers who already love this genre. So with your book, what you're probably going to want to do is figure out, okay, what books am I reading that I love? Because you're writing about what you love, and you say, okay, what categories do those fall into? Where do they exist on Amazon? And then you would see, okay, this book is a pretty good comp title for mine. So let's just say that you were doing, let's not do Sarah Moss. We have to scroll for a little while before we don't have her. Let's say
Sarah.
Let's say Broken Bonds by Jay Bree. And I will switch to this tab real quick. So I just want to show you an example of what it looks like and where you can find that information. So this is just the page, right? So say you've read this book and you're like, wow, this is like the perfect comp title for my book. What you're going to do is go to the page and you're just going to scroll, and you probably won't be able to get this same amount of information on your phone. I haven't had good success with that unless you request like the desktop version. But you can see like there's so many bits. There's the popular highlights in this book. We're ignoring all of that for now. The only thing we want is this product details. It's about halfway down the page. And someone is ringing my doorbell. So I'm going to finish telling you this real quick, and then I'm going to pause. You see, this is in 3 different spots. We have it in Werewolf and Shifter, in Paranormal Romance, and in Fantasy Romance. So you're going to want to investigate each of those 3 things. And someone's at my door, so I'm going to be right back. Hold on. Just so everybody knows, my kids are in my office with me now. So if you hear background noise, it's them. You're welcome. You are being blessed by their presence.
Yes.
Okay, so we are here on the product details page, and we have just seen, okay, these are the specific subsections that this book is in. And again, the whole point of doing this is to say, this book is a really good comp. I think people who have read this book are also going to like my book. So then this gives you a place to look for the different categories that your book might fit into really well. So, okay, we're going to switch back to the...
So how do you find the categories? Like, is it better to find... So what I'm hearing you say is find a broad category that's pretty popular, but if you can, find a niche category.
Oh, yes.
That
yes.
isn't as popular as well, and make sure that you've got both of them attached to your story.
The way I would recommend doing it is that you have one broad category and two niche ones. Niche? Two small ones. Two small ones that are more specific. So you're going to do those two smaller ones, and those are really where you are going to get the most of your traction. So people are going to come to this fantasy romance page and they're going to see Sarah J. Maas, right? But if you go into a sub one, like, I don't know, love triangles, we'll give my computer a second to catch up with that click, then you're probably going to find people with author names that, unless you are in the category, unless you read broadly in this particular category, you might not find and you might not know. So anything that has these love triangles, if your book also has a love triangle in it, you might find it really helpful to pre-check these categories, because some of these covers are not very appropriate for a broader audience. But
here's what
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm going to switch back to a less man chest page, and I'll see if I can find a different subcategory to show a better example of that.
We're just trying to make sure this is going to be fine for everybody viewing, even at work. So something that I really like about romance is that romance is incredibly explicit about which categories it's going for. Like, this is a happily ever after. It includes these tropes. It has these moments.
Yeah.
I've noticed that people writing in other genres, especially like fantasy, that's less of a practice even for indie authors.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Okay, I have a new tab to show you. So this one's a really good example of, so we're still in the romance genre. So say you want to do fantasy romance, and within your fantasy romance, I don't know, maybe you have a fantasy firefighter, whatever. So your piece would then fit into fantasy romance, but in there you're competing with a lot. It is a really, really, really big category. And it is very oversaturated because we have
How do you tell that it's big and saturated?
This is what we do. So I'll show you on this one. What you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you are in the top 100 paid. And then you are going to scroll down to item number 20.
Huh.
Right? I know.
Okay.
So item number 20 is what you're going to look at. And we are going to see this one has 18,000 stars, which is quite a lot. And hold on a second. Sorry, my computer is like freezing. This is where you can do it by hand if you want to, but you do not have to do it by hand. There are, oh my gosh, there's software that you can purchase that specifically will show you like, okay, this is where it is. This is the ranking category of it. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I've like lost where I am. This episode is going to take more editing than our normal ones. So, okay, we have this one. No More Secrets, A Small Town Love Story, Blue Moon Book Number 1 by Lucy Score. So we're going to see a couple of really important things in this, actually. So if you are wanting to get into this particular subgenre, we noticed that this is like a rom-com, right? And obviously we're looking at, whoa, that zoomed in. Don't zoom in. We have swear words in here. In the blurb, we have swears. You can see the length of it, and you can also see that this is book 1 of 8, so quite a large series. This is probably subcategoried into other places, so this might not be a good comp title for you, but what we're looking for here is how popular it is. So what we're wanting to find is right down here, this bestsellers rank. Okay? The rule of thumb is that if your bestsellers rank is lower than 20,000, like lower than 20,000, it is going to be a tricky category to get into. Because that means of like the top 20,000 books, this book is in there and these are like all of the books all across Amazon. So this book is number 945 in the entire Kindle store, which is quite impressive. So this tells us right here, 945, and it's only ranking number 20 in military books. that means that the military romance book, the military romance category is really full because this book is a very high rank, and in Amazon, lower is better. So it's a very high rank, but it's just barely on the first page of the military rank. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So I would say if you were trying to get into like military, this is not a category that you could easily break into because you have books that are selling $945 in the whole Kindle store is crazy, crazy good sales. And they only just managed to be in number 20. And it also tells you right here that rom-coms, number 95 in rom-com. Rom-com is packed. It is packed. So those are both categories that you might consider as your big category, but not necessarily your niche category.
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So the easier way to do this is through something called K-Lytics. So this does cost, but I have personally found it very worth it, especially if I am trying hard to find a subcategory. So we're not affiliated with them. I would love to be affiliated with them. They're really cool, but we're not affiliated with them. I've just used them as my own personal writing, and they're wonderful. So K-Lytics is what it's called. It's K-Lytics, Lytics.com, K-Lytics.com. We'll include a link in the notes too. And I mean, they've got a sales page, but they're right. These guys are the ones who track every single market, every single category, every single subcategory. They have tracked it over time. They have tracked the rankings. They know where you can see like on the background here, a hot niche, a hot mainstream, competitive bestseller, hot sells, things along those lines. It is so good at just telling you, okay, you're writing in this specific subgenre. Great. This is what you should write. Here's how much you should consider pricing it for. Here's the page length of a lot of these things.
Oh my gosh.
It is so worth the investment, especially if you know which category you are going for. Like if you're not sure what category you're going for, I feel like this, like it might be
a good way to make that decision.
Yeah. But you can purchase on their end, their monthly stuff. I actually had their Elite Pass at one point, and I'm such a data nerd. We know this. I genuinely had a really lovely time going in and like deep diving and figuring out what all the different trends were doing. So it depends what you want. It depends what you need. You can purchase a pass that literally just gives you the access to like all of their data, or you can buy specific market breakdowns. So they'll do one like every month. Well, they'll say something like, here is one for like, here's the romance analysis. Here's the analysis for mystery. Here's the analysis for suspense or thriller or whatever. So K-Lytics is a really incredible tool that is not, I mean, I just showed you the most expensive options that they have, but to just purchase like the one category section is not horribly expensive. So if you want to count that towards like, this is just part of your research budget, it will save you a ton of time. Otherwise, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to go through these categories like I showed you, and you're going to say, okay, here's romance. Here's all of the possible subcategories I could be in. Okay, let's scroll to find book 20. Where is that one? Is this a good category?
When you're starting a story, are you hitting K-Lytics and going, okay, where are the two niche genres I'm going to dig into?
I am. Yeah. Okay. Especially if I am wanting to sell. If I have a book that I'm just writing because I feel like I want to write it and it feels important to me, then I write what I write and then I worry about marketing later. But if I am writing to market, this is what we mean when we say writing to market, is you are deeply aware of what is selling in the market and you are writing that sort of thing. I tend to, in the way that I write, I am not an excellent write-to-market author because of the speed with which I write. I can draft pretty quickly, but I need some time before, like in between when I have finished a book and when I am ready to publish it. So by the time that I am ready to go, often the market has shifted. So I'm not really the best example for how to write quickly and to market because that's not how my brain works. But yeah, especially if I were writing to market, I would absolutely go to K-Lytics. I would dig in really deep there. And again, you don't have to spend the money if you don't want to. So we're going to do one more example just so that we know exactly what I mean. We're still in romance. We've gone to later in life romance. Okay. Let's just say this might be a place where you could subcategory your book. We know if it's in romantasy big, but let's say it could potentially fit into later in life as well, which, by the way, later in life tends to be like 40 and older, which is not later, people.
My goodness. Am I later in life?
Whatever.
Wow.
So this already looks a little bit more promising to me because our number 20 has slightly lower, like a lower number of reviews, which means to me it's potentially a little less popular. Not that we're rooting for people to have less popular books, but this means that this category is potential.
Has some more room.
Yeah, there's more room for new authors in here, or there are readers who are in this category who are like, we love it, we want it. Like, they're high ranked, all of these ones. So people who are reading in this category really love this category. And you can see we've got a lot of like beachy front type things. So if you wanted to break into this particular category, that would all be really good to take into account. So again, we're just going to scroll all the way down. The only thing we're looking for here is the bestseller rank. So this one is 2000, which is better than the 900 one. This is still pretty high. It's still pretty low, whatever. The number, it's still selling quite well. So it would be a good one to put on maybe on your short list, but we're really looking for something where the number 20 is like 20,000 or slightly higher. You don't want it to go much higher than like 30 or 40, like 40 to 50,000 starts to be like, okay, no one's really reading this book. But right in like the 18 to 25,000 is a really, like, it's a sweet spot where people are still, the category has not been flooded yet. So it takes a lot of research often, and a lot of tabs, and a lot of scrolling, and a lot of looking at the bestseller rank. But you absolutely can do it by hand.
So it sounds like doing this part before writer begins to invest in actually creating the story means that this is essentially, these are the marketing decisions that we're making in advance.
Yeah.
Because this is, once it's written, we know which tropes to include.
Mm-hmm. And then you can dive really deep into like the tropes that you want to use. You can dive deep into like, what are people saying about this category? What are like the top negative reviews? What are the top positive reviews? How are people structuring their blurbs? Are they using like quotes to get people's attention? Are they just diving right into the characters? You can even go as deep as being like, what is the name of every main character in the top 20 of this category? You'd be like, wow, for some weird reason, they all start with the letter Q. Amazing. I am also going to make sure that my character starts with the letter Q, or, whatever.
So I'm really into world building. I love Brandon Sanderson. People talk about world builder's disease, getting stuck in doing research and not writing. Do you set a limit on yourself? Like, I'm going to research it. I'm going to find these points. And at some point I have to cut myself off and just move forward.
Absolutely. I tell myself that I am allowed to, I can't set like a number of hours on it because I have ADHD and hours disappear like bubbles in the wind. But I do have to limit myself, especially because I find that I start to get bored. That's my issue. Is that once I've researched the category and researched the category and researched the category, I'm like, okay, I'm done now. And I don't have any chutzpah left to write the book. So you kind of have to know your own process there and understand what feels good, especially if if digging through all of the categories feels like just so much work to you and it does not sound interesting, then I wouldn't even bother. I would just save yourself a whole bunch of time and just buy the K-Lytics report. They're not horribly expensive. For how much time it will save you, I feel like that's really worth it. Unless you really like digging in and like doing all of the data mining yourself, rock on. The other thing that I would recommend is it's on Chrome. What are the things called where you just have the little, like the add-on up at the top, the extension? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to show you my extension right here. This is called KD Spy. And I have paid for my version of it. It was like a one-time purchase. I bought it a while ago though. So it is not showing it. Let's try this again. And I really like KD Spy because it essentially does all of the work of digging through and seeing the category for you. Okay, I have to share my whole screen so that you can see this because it's an extension. So this is only in Chrome and it only works on Kindle specifically, but it is a really good way to kind of just shortcut the whole thing. So all you do is you go to the section that you want to look at and you just click, this is what it looks like, the little spy thingy, you click that, and then it will tell you, here are all Why is this looking really weird on my side? Does it look all like grayed out to you?
No. No, it looks fine.
Okay. Well, I don't know why it's doing that, guys. Sorry if you're... Oh, there we go. Okay, I figured it out. Okay, so you can see here, it lists the top 20. And 20, it just categorizes it to 20 because you see 20 books on a page when you're just scrolling. So 20 books, the goal obviously is to be on the first page, right? So it's going to tell you the price of all of these ones. And again, we are in, like, this is just Kindle more generally. So these are like the top 20 books in the whole Kindle store. But you're going to see information like their length, their price, the estimated monthly sales that they have, the estimated monthly revenue, the number of reviews they have, and their sales rank. This is all interesting information, but what you really should look for is down here at the bottom, the popularity, potential, and competition. So it's very popular. There's a lot of potential in this category, but there is a lot of competition in this category. So let's switch over to let's do sports and outdoors. Why not? We'll just pick a random one. And apparently hockey is the one to do. So let's go to mountaineering. I'm so afraid now of accidentally showing you covers that are not safe for work. Okay, and then, so you go to your subcategory where you're like, maybe, and then you just click and it loads for you and you wait a minute. But what it's going to do essentially is it's going to pull every one of those books and it's going to find all of their bestseller ranking numbers, the ABSR, and it will tell you, is this a good category for you to break into or is it not? And it's maybe going to work. Sorry, it's really slow. But yeah, so once this is all market research in the beginning.
Espionage is difficult and it takes time to do it right.
Apparently, we're going to try to reload that. So I like doing this in the beginning more. Sometimes, I mean, honestly, if I've written a book and I want to sell it and I want to put it up there, I'm going to do this exact same research. It's just kind of in reverse because I already know this is what I'm going to do. This is what the book is already written. The book already has vampires, or the book already has mountaineering, or the book already contains whatever else. Okay, this is a good example. So right here you see the popularity of this is pretty low. People aren't really buying mountaineering books. You can see the number one sales rank is just barely under 20,000, right? And it has medium potential. So the average revenue, it's okay. It's not like an amazing group, but the competition is real low. So if you did have your romantasy where they happened to also be mountaineering, I don't know, I'm making stuff up. But if mountaineering was an important part of your book, you could very easily pop it into here as a niche category, niche, whatever, as a small category. And you could very easily rank in this category. And once your rank goes up in one category, it is naturally going to move up in other categories as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you want to find something. This one's a little low. Green, and green is like your very best friend, but those are hard to find. And, oh, golly, sorry. My house is so loud today in the background. Yeah. Does that... Ask me your next question, because I'm feeling a little bit flustered. Like I'm telling you way too much information.
It's okay. Okay, so let's pretend that let's choose a specific category.
Okay.
What would it look like? So a success... If you're using this to determine what you're going to write next, what looks like success? It's over 20,000.
Yeah. So we want the number 20 book in a specific category will be around 20,000 in its Amazon bestseller ranking. And we want it there because that means it's still popular enough that people are buying it, but it's not in a market that is super oversaturated. So that is the easiest way to get into you make your way first into a niche. For real, that's going to bother me. And then you just slowly work your way up. And as you continue posting in one specific subgenre, so you have 5 or 6 books and they're all in that subgenre. And when you go to that subgenre, you are book numbers 1 through 5 on that page. Your ranking is then going to continue to go up in the other more competitive categories.
Okay.
Yeah. And have you seen books that have the number 1 Amazon bestseller on them, the orange tag? You get that for being the number 1 bestseller in a subcategory.
Aha.
So if you are the number one bestseller in mountaineering, you can say technically, and some people disagree that this is an ethical thing or not, but you can say technically you are an Amazon number one bestseller because you are, because that's how they do it. They divide it by category. So at a minimum, it's important to get those smaller categories and those subcategories because they are what can let you get a foothold initially.
Right. So are you cruising all these subcategories until you find something that tickles your brain and goes, okay, I think I could stand to put work in on a story that includes that.
Pretty much. And this is because I write in a lot of different genres. And some people say that doesn't work super well because your audience doesn't know what to expect from you, which is totally fair. And that if you are going to genre jump, that it is a better idea to have multiple pen names. Because then people can associate, like Victoria Schwab, V.E. Schwab is who writes all of the YA books, I believe. But then Victoria Schwab writes, I think, the adult ones. And then I'm pretty sure she even has a third one for her younger audience books. So like you can do something like that where it's you, it's clearly you, but like you have a different distinction within the pen name. But some people like extremely different pen names. I know one lady who writes they're Western romances, but she also, and like, so it's like horses, Western, ranches. They're like all set in Wyoming. It's all about one great big, huge extended family and then has been expanded to the small town that they all live in and will slowly eventually take over all of Wyoming. And her readers are so happy and they love that series. And she likes writing it, but she's also really into like intense psychological thriller stuff. So she has a completely different pen name that writes intense psychological thrillers. And for her, it didn't feel like, it was like a no-brainer. She's like, my people who are reading like my super squishy, romantic, sweet, horseback riding Montana cowboy stuff don't want my like noir-inspired New Orleans, super gritty detective backstreets. Right. Like they don't want the same thing. But she still advertises them in her emails. She'll be like, if you really like romance, like here's what I have in romance, and if you really like thriller, here's what I have. So she has some overlap. But yeah, a lot of people you just separate your pen names by genre. And some people even separate by subgenre. So it kind of depends on you and what you want to write. If I already had an established pen name, I would not be genre hunting like this. I would just go. I would still pay attention to the subgenres within my main genre that were getting popular. Because sometimes you could say, okay, yeah, I'm writing this Montana cowboy romance series. But I also see that older romances is really popping off over here. So the next book that I do, I'm going to write about the parents, or I'm going to write about the estranged uncle or whatever. So you can have an older character in it who also fits that subgenre. So it's important to keep track, especially if you want to be able to write to market and kind of pivot in that way. But especially if you have a really established audience, you want to continue feeding your audience what it is that they have come to expect from you. Yes, that was a long answer. But
That's a great answer.
Okay,
so let's say we have used this to figure out a couple of hungry subgenres and a pretty popular umbrella genre. Mm-hmm. So now we have that. Now how do we go and look at the tropes? How do we look at do you have like a checklist of like, here are the major tropes that I can see from the covers and the blurbs?
Yeah, you can. Well, and especially if you've already been reading in the genre, which honestly, if you're very first trying to break into something, it's so smart to just read in the genre, right in the genre that you read in, because even if you're not consciously aware of the tropes, you have subconsciously picked them up. So let's just say, if you have already been reading in this, I think what would be best is that you jot down what you already love. And you do that. Especially if going more detailed is going to stop you from writing, don't do that. But if you do not know, if you're like, you know what, I really want to, like, I've been writing this genre my whole life. I really want to, like, dip my toe into thriller, for example. You would then go into thriller. And I think it's a good idea to read the top 20 in any genre before you start writing in it, especially if it's a new genre for you. But again, if you've been reading in the genre, you probably already have read a lot of the top 20s. So what I would do, especially if I've already read it, especially if it's been a little while, I go in and I just copy paste all their blurbs and I just read through for keywords and I just highlight as I go. So you'll find things like, I don't know, the last time I did this really big deep dive for something was for mafia romances. So like those are the examples that are coming to my brain. And it was things like ransom showed up a lot. So like, okay, I know that a ransom is a really important piece of this genre. And another one was, it was ransom, but it was almost always with the daughter. It wasn't ever with like a cousin or with like a whatever. It was always a child, like the child of the main bad guy. I'm not saying a child like under 18, because they're never under 18. Good. And they're also never over 30. Anyway. But like those sorts of things that you pay attention to. And then the other thing that I have found really helpful for figuring out what the trope is, especially if it's been a while since I've read the book. This is not a shortcut like for not reading the book, for the record. You should still be reading the books and understanding why they're selling and what's good about them and what the audience loves. But looking at the reviews can be so helpful, because Amazon now just like sorts the reviews for you and tells you like, this is what people often mention. And sometimes you can just be like, oh, look at that. Second chance romance. Ding, ding, ding. I know that that's a popular trope right now. You can also find for reviews, I find it helpful to look at the 5 stars and the 2 stars. Okay. 5 and 2 and 3 kind of, 2 and 3 for me are about the same, because the 1-star people are the people who hated it, and you're not going to find a ton of useful information in there. 5-star people are the ones who are going to be your super readers. They are going to tell it to their friends. They're the ones who will tell you like, oh, I just love this so much. It was so interesting. It was so blah, 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 blah. The 3-star people are the ones who wanted to like it, but didn't quite. Like they still like the genre for the most part, and they like something about it. They liked it enough to pick it up, and they liked it enough to finish it. But that's where you can often find a lot of pain points. Like when I was doing the mafia research, a bunch of the 3-star ones said things like, the female main character is so whiny. Like I just couldn't stand how whiny she was. And so then that would be something to be aware of. Like, okay, we do want our female main character, but maybe we have, instead of her being whiny, maybe we focus on making her kind of sarcastic. Right? So and obviously you're never going to make everybody happy, and that's probably not a goal worth aiming for, but it does give you kind of a little peek into the minds of the readers who are very active in that genre.
Okay. Excellent. So let's say you've got this. You've got, how many tropes do you usually try? You try to find some tropes that feel pretty good. 2 tropes. 1
to 3. I mean, it depends so much on your subgenre. So much on, and you'll even find tropes within tropes. So like if you have the second chance romances, which tend to feature, people who were together at one point and then they broke up and now they're back together again. Hold on. So like in second chance romances, people who were together at one point and then they broke up and now they're having a second chance, you'll often find like the subgenre of the military person who, like, part of the reason they broke up is because he went away to the military. So then you have 2 subgenres that both have their own unique tropes. So the military one often has a trope of like he is dealing with some sort of PTSD that she can uniquely relate to. And the second chance romance is the trope is that they broke up over some sort of a miscommunication. And so then you can be sure to include both of those in a way that pleases both readers of both genres.
Okay. Great. Okay, so let's say we've got that. We've got our tropes.
Okay.
Now we use our tropes.
And you write a book.
And then we write a book. Okay,
easy.
So speaking as somebody who has been spending a lot of time over the years in writing workshops and writing conferences, something I really love about IndiePub is that it's almost just glossed over. It's elided. Like there's just, I find that people are like, and then you create inventory. And then here's what you do next. And it's interesting to me how much focus we spend on like the step 3 of the writing of the book. And that's just sort of a quick hurdle for a lot of indie writers.
It's so reversed from TradPub, right? Where the whole focus is like you are writing and you're becoming a better writer and you're improving your craft and you're getting really good at this one specific thing and oh, your illusions are incredible and la 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 la. And that's not really what it is. And it can be in indie. There are a lot of indie authors who are very, very dedicated to their craft. But it doesn't have to be in the same way. I heard somebody the other day say, they were talking about Stephanie Meyer and the popularity of the Twilight series. And they said, we didn't read Twilight because it was good fiction necessarily. Like, I think everyone, even if you just love Twilight, you can probably agree that it is not technically very well written. And that's okay, because what it was is engaging.
Right.
And so
It's like
found
a hell of a story.
Yeah.
It's not.
I mean, even if you were hate reading it, you still read it. You were still flipping pages and still being like, why do I care so much about this creepy, how long have you been 17? A while. Why do we still care about that? Because it was a really gripping story. It was really engaging. So I feel like if we were going to just really broadly overgeneralize, I feel like traditional publication overemphasizes quality of writing, and indie publication instead overemphasizes the tension in the story. Like, it's much more focused on writing a fast, snappy, really engaging, like you're going to binge read this book.
Right, where it hits those specific tropes and...
Yeah. And one's not better than the other. They're just a different way to approach it. But especially if you're coming from trad pub, or if you've been trained up in the way of trad pub and taken like courses on how to be a writer, they tend to focus more on like the literary side of it, which is more the trad pub side. And indie tends to be a little bit more focused on, I'm going to write this thing. It's going to be high stakes. We're going to go fast. It's written to market. There are these tropes that people just love. And they intend for their books to be devoured in like a day.
Right.
Instead, like you are pounding these books. You are not necessarily savoring them. That's not to say that they're any better or worse. It's just a different kind of vibe.
It's a different goal, which is why we got to start with, why are you writing this book? What's your goal as a writer? So I think we should stop there, because I think this is a really good part one. And then in part two, I think that we should jump into, take those tropes and start turning it into plot, into an outline.
Okay. And we can do that. And then we'll talk next time too about like, how do you deal with ISBNs? Where do you find covers? How do you hire a cover designer? How do you go through all of that?
We definitely need all
How do you
that.
actually like format your book so it looks nice on Kindle? How do you write a blurb? How do you all of the things? But
let's do it.
Yes, I think categories are they're a really powerful place to start, and really just figure out what you want to write and then read those books and just take notes. Just take a lot of notes.
Okay.
I feel like this
Thank you
whole
so
thing.
much.
You're so welcome. I'm feeling like I just talked a lot to basically say, hi, download K-Lytics. But
No. Now I'm wanting to corner you and pick your brain and do this specifically together.
Well, I would love that.
Yeah, let's do it.
That. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This has been Rough Drafts Welcome.
Thank you so much for listening.
Got any questions? We would love to hear them. Got a complaint? We'll hear it too.
Yep. Leave us a 5-star review. Pretty please, and thank you. And if you want to book with Salt and Sage Books, or learn anything else about what we do, or if you want to work with us or take our courses or blah, 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 you can find us at www.saltandsagebooks.com, and we're all over social media too.
We sure are.
And we'll see you next time.